Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Summer brings harvest, but it also brings a whole bunch of gardening questions. It's the Q&A show just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. It's summer, and with it comes lots of plant problems, bugs, weeds, and of course, heat. We have received lots of viewer questions about these and many other topics. This week, we're going to spend the whole show catching up on viewer questions we did not get to air because of time. We start off with a question about tomatoes. This year, I lost 80 tomato plants to leaf curl. How do I get rid of leaf curl and protect my tomato plants? And this is Arthur. So Booker, we'll start with you. So how do you think you get rid of leaf curl?
Probably the same thing, heat, stress on there, could be heat on there. And I would check the underside of the leaf for maybe a little mice or something in there. That could be some of the things that's going on with leaf curl on there.
Anything you want to add to that, Elena?
And the leaf curl is a symptom of stress.
Right.
They're showing they're stressed.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think when my plants leaf curl, then I feel sorry for them. I think, but my first thought is they're diseased. They've got something.
Right.
So again, your fungicides, when you're worrying about them, you can spray your fungicides, but those are preventative.
Right.
If they are actually leaf curling because they've got a disease at that point, it may be too late. But of course, it's a good time too to spray your fungicides because as they're being stressed, maybe from the heat, that's when you have to worry about them catching something.
Okay.
So use your fungicides and alternate what you use.
All right, those are two good points. One I would like to mention, there is a physiological leaf curl, which is actually due to environmental stresses, which is heat, for us. Of course, do look for mites, insect pests, which could be, sucking on those leaves themselves. And something else I know that causes leaf curl, herbicide drift.
Right.
So that's something else you have to look out for too as well. It could be, somebody may be spraying an herbicide nearby, which affects the younger tissue. So there's just a couple of things to consider, but for the most part, we're probably thinking it's environmental stress.
Which sometimes you can't do anything about.
Right.
What maybe a neighbor's spraying.
Right.
But you can watch your own drift and also your water runoff.
Right.
You might be watering the lawn and it's drifting, it's migrating over to the plants.
Good point.
So
That is a good point.
And a lot of time on my tomato plant, I like try to rotate those in the garden if I can to another location because it could be something in the soil that causing that. And a lot of times the disease don't like certain disease on certain plants. So maybe try to rotate your tomato to another location in the garden if you get a chance.
Okay. So crop rotation is important. Resistant varieties would be something else that's important as well.
And a lot of times your drift too, though, on your herbicides, they'll start to alter how they grow as well.
That's right.
So
Exactly
I would
right.
look for that so you'd know in the future what, if that was the cause of it.
What is the difference between 888, 1010, 1313, etc.? What is the right strength needed for plants? And this is Anil on YouTube.
Oh,
It's a good question.
it is a good question.
So what's the difference?
Difference is in the amount of the elements that are present in each one of the categories. When you have organic fertilizer that's just like compost, or you compost your own material, it's lower than the 888.
Right.
So it's just the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that is available for plants to take up in each fertilizer. Now, as to what is the best one, it's hard to answer that question.
Right.
Especially without a soil test. You gotta know where you're starting. I tell you, my vegetable garden wasn't doing well, and I went ahead and soil tested, found out it was high in phosphorus and potassium, and was recommended that I only put nitrogen down. So I did that for a few years, and voila, that's what it needed, was just nitrogen. It didn't need phosphorus, potassium.
It makes a difference, right, to get the soil tested.
Yeah.
So if you look at that 888 or 888, 8% nitrogen, 8% phosphorus, 8% potassium. Okay? You have a 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. Okay? The only difference is going to be how much of each one of these you would apply.
Right.
Okay? So for the 888, if it asks for maybe a cup, for the 13, it'll probably be 2/3 of a cup. You
Yeah.
know, it'll be something smaller, right?
Right.
So that's going to be the main difference, is how much you're going to apply. But just
Yes.
remember, it's a 1 to 1 to 1 ratio.
Yeah.
But I always say, let's start with the soil test.
Yes.
Good example you just gave us.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, because you don't know, you cannot tell by looking at
Right.
soil what's the soil pH is.
So Anil, go to your local extension office, ask to get your soil tested. Let's start there, okay? Then you'll get a recommendation based on what it is you're trying to grow,
Yes.
and they'll let you know what fertilizers to use.
Yes.
Okay? But that was a good question.
It is a good
Good
question.
question. And again, too, these are all complete fertilizers.
Yes, they are.
Because they have nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium
In all of them.
in all of them. Right. So complete balanced fertilizer. Okay. So usually, you know, for those who don't get their soil tested, you know, the recommendation is use a complete balanced fertilizer.
Right.
Like these, but get your soil tested first.
Yes.
All right. Don't guess, soil test. Last summer, I planted a crepe myrtle. I noticed today that there are suckers growing from the trunk about 10 inches from the ground. If I snap off crepe myrtle suckers and use some root hormone, will they root? And this is Country Girl 3 from Spring Hill, Tennessee. You like that?
Yeah,
Country Girl
look
3.
at that.
All right.
I think I'll be in Spring Hill tomorrow.
How about that? So
Yeah,
how about
yeah,
that?
yeah.
So what do you think about that?
So I am going to give, my first answer is going to be our legal disclaimer, right? So some
Okay.
of our newer cultivars would still be under plant patent. So for us to, you know, be completely sure about whether we should be brooding, everything that
Yeah,
will root,
okay.
you know, it's good to respect the, you know, breeders on
Okay,
that.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So with that being said and done,
Yeah. Yeah. Semi-hardwood cuttings, pretty common
pretty
for crepe
common.
myrtle.
Pretty common. And I'll tell you something else too, though, because I think Joellen actually did this with a crepe myrtle that her dad gave her. Some of those suckers, if you get enough of the root system,
You may, I mean, you may literally,
work.
you may be dividing almost,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
it can work.
Yeah. And I have read about crepe myrtle that they may be prolific enough rooters in some of those cuttings that rooting hormone might not be 100%
Okay. Good. I didn't
essential.
know that.
But there's some good information about propagation, especially on woody species.
Yeah.
I always like to, well, I'll admit that I'm a geek, right? But I still have my plant propagation book from from college.
I
and
have
so,
mine as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always look at all of the details about the rooting hormone level on, and suggestions there.
See, sometimes keeping those books, it comes in handy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Comes in
yeah.
handy. If I trim the height of my crepe myrtle by 2 feet or so from the top, will this encourage lateral growth? I like the size of the tree to fill out or extend further for a little more privacy. Thank you. And this is Cindy from New Jersey. All right. So, yeah, she wants to cut it to encourage more lateral
Sure.
growth. And
You
we're
know-
talking about New Jersey. So, what do you
It
think?
sort of depends on what kind of crepe myrtle she
right.
has. You know,
Good.
we don't know how tall it is to begin with. We
Right.
don't know if it's one that's going to be 25 feet tall or one that wants to be 10. But
Right.
typically when you're pruning, it does make things bush out more. Now, if it's like a tree form behind us here and you take 2 feet off the top, it's not going to make this branch down below.
Right.
Now, if you cut it off at 6 feet, which we don't want to do, you're going to get lots of growth down low, even probably from the base, which you don't want on a tree form. So it kind of depends. You know, if she's wanting more, be thicker, if it's one that is more compact form, I wouldn't hesitate giving that a try. But also she might just consider adding some more plants in that area,
okay. How
or
about
maybe,
that?
you know, even some more dwarf or compact forms in kind of in amongst those to fill in at the base. Or if it's giving lots of shade like this, then you would need to add shade plants underneath it. And so she could add another layer of plants in the area to give her that privacy that she needs.
And I mean, that's pretty high north to be growing crepe myrtle successfully.
Yeah.
So
New Jersey, think
they're
about that.
still in the zone there. That's
Right.
awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty good. I transplanted this shrub several years ago to the back corner of my yard when it was about knee high. It gets a lot of moisture here and quite a bit of shade in the summer from the river birch overhead. Can you tell me the name of this shrub? I believe it may have the name olive branch, or olive bush or something like that, but I'm not certain. And this is Dixie from Clarksdale, Mississippi. All right. So we have a nice picture, from
Yes, it's
her.
a nice picture.
A lot of shade though from
It is
the
a lot
river
of shade,
birch.
and you see how the leaves are much wider because and they're kind of sparse, but that guess because they don't get a whole lot of sun.
Right. And she believes it may have the name olive bush. So
Yeah,
what- so
there's
what
a
do we think?
lot of different things with
Yeah.
olive bush name, but the most common one that could possibly be, well, I would think would be an osmanthus.
See, that's what I
of
thought it
some
was. Yeah, just looking at it.
Yeah, I would like to know if it has fragrant flowers on it. But then again, because it's in so much shade and it has a little bit wider and larger leaves, because of that, it doesn't always look like a lot of the osmanthus that like sun to be able to bloom.
Right.
So she may not have blooms on it, but I'm wondering if it does bloom for her.
That's what I'm wondering too. Because yeah, she did say it gets a lot of moisture, but yeah, it's in shade. And of course we know that it needs full sun to get those flowers that are fragrant.
Yeah.
So that's what I think that is.
Yeah.
Because you look at the leaf, look at the dark green color.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like osmanthus to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if it does get enough sun, it'll have those flowers on there. They will smell
No.
lovely, and you'll know
Beautiful.
exactly, what you have there.
Yes.
Right. So
True.
if you can, maybe she can.
She could, if she could move it, or
No, that thing looks pretty big.
it looks pretty big.
It looks pretty
Maybe
big.
she could just start a cutting of it and put it in the
Okay.
sun.
Okay.
Use some rooting powder and get it in
Maybe.
a container.
Okay.
Or she could bend one of the lower branches down and put a brick over it and some rooting powder and see if she can get another part of it to root. And then dig it up and put it in more sunny conditions,
sun.
see if
Okay.
that's what it is.
Okay. And I also thought, is it possible to maybe limb up the river birch, maybe? So you can get more
Yeah,
sunlight down there?
you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, that
It
may be a
just
bit much, but it's,
Just depends on, how low it is, but
Yeah. Okay.
and the look she's going for.
Right. Okay. So.
But it
thank
is a
you,
nice
Dixie.
evergreen shrub.
It is nice. Yeah, it's pretty good size too. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it likes it, but we think it needs a little bit more sun so you can see those flowers.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can smell it. Right. I love boxwood hedges. The location where I want to plant them, my front yard, receives full sun all day long. What would be the best kind of boxwood to plant for a hedge? This is Annette from Memphis, Tennessee. So, the best kind of boxwood? Hedge?
Hedge. No. Well, the catch here is full sun.
It's full sun. Right. All right.
And that's when I would say I would prefer a holly hedge, because hollies are actually substitutes for boxwoods, the small leaf varieties, the Japanese, like the native vomitorias and dwarf vomitorias, and even some of the newer varieties. But because boxwoods really don't do great in full sun. Unless she's got enough, it's got to be well drained and it's got to be enough moisture in the ground so they don't dry out. And if you're going to do that, I would say the Korean variety is probably, if you're going to put it in full sun, if you want to try it, I would say Korean, but I would suggest hollies in full sun.
Hollies in full sun.
Yeah, rather than boxwood in full sun.
Boxwood, pretty good morning sun, but see, our afternoon sun in Memphis, Tennessee, it's brutal.
It's just so hot. And
brutal.
I'm afraid that she's going to get burning on the leaves and it's going to be unattractive and she won't like it.
Right.
That's why I think some kind of holly hedge would be a better choice.
Okay. Holly hedge would be a better choice, Miss Annette. Yeah, again, because we're thinking about the full sun, especially afternoon sun here in Memphis. It's going to be tough. And then boxwood, too, has shallow root systems.
Right.
So mulch it, got to keep it watered so it can get, established and survive, right, and thrive.
And you're right. And if it was just afternoons, the late afternoon, that might be okay.
Right.
If it had shade the rest of the day.
Right.
Or if it had shade the first part of the day, or even just a couple hours in the middle of the day, but all day long, I'm afraid she won't be happy with the way the box
All
would
day.
look.
What is the name of this tree? And this is John from Olive Branch, Mississippi.
Just a little ways down the road.
That's a little ways, just a little piece, all right? So what do you think that is?
I'm thinking cottonwood.
That is an eastern cottonwood tree, right?
Now, here's the thing about Eastern Cottonwood. Some people consider it to be a weed tree. Yeah, because you see it all over
Rapidly
the place.
growing.
First, short-lived.
I actually think that the blowing cotton is really beautiful, but I can see that some people might find it
I actually like
annoying.
it, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, so yeah, fast growing, short-lived, can grow in any soil type, you know,
Yeah.
for the most part. Has little landscape value though, you know, because the wood is weak,
Yeah.
soft, and brittle, right? And believe it or not, I can remember reading about Eastern Cottonwood in Dr. Durr's Woody Manual. And you know what he said about it? Impressive in river bottoms
Yeah.
should remain there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's like, why
remember
work
that.
against nature?
Yeah.
Let them serve their purpose.
Let them serve
right?
their purpose in
Yeah.
the river bottoms.
Yes.
So there you have it, John. It's an Eastern Cottonwood is what that is, right? I think it's Populus del Tortoise.
Yeah.
Do European plum varieties pollinate Asian varieties? Interesting question. This is Brian on YouTube. All right.
And it's an interesting question because it would make sense because they're all, you know, plums. Or
Right.
they're all, but no.
No. So this is what needs to happen. You need a European plum variety to pollinate a European plum.
Right.
You need an Asian variety to pollinate Asian plums.
Correct.
All right.
And usually nurseries will tell you, well, this is the pollinator for these
Yeah.
varieties, and so you need both of them. So I would actually contact wherever he got that and
Yeah.
see if they have the same pollinator for that particular variety that he has.
Right. Because in this instance, you're going to need the same pollinators, right? You're going to need a
Yeah.
European plum for a European plum, Asian plum for an Asian plum.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not going to be any cross-pollination between the European plum and the Asian variety.
And one of the reasons is they don't bloom at the same time.
They bloom at different times.
So that's why they can't pollinate each other
Right.
because they're not blooming at the right times.
Right. Yeah. So they don't bloom at the right times, and of course, at the same times. And then some environmental factors,
True.
play a part in that as well. So Brian, hope that answers your question. All
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have blooms on my espalier apple tree that lost the fruit and the leaves. I think it was apple rust. How do I control apple rust on my apple tree? Don't know the variety. What should I spray and when? And this is John from Northern New York, Mr. D. So how does he control apple rust on his apple tree?
Fungicide applications, timely fungicide applications. If it's cedar apple rust, you can go out and cut down all the cedar trees from all the directions for several hundred miles, and you might take care of that. But if you follow the spray schedule according to the Home Orchard or trusty Home Orchard spray guide,
Or check at your local extension office there in Northern New York. They may have a
that's
spray guide
correct.
for you as well.
Yeah, they will. I
They
guarantee
will.
you they will.
I'm sure
They've
they
got a
will.
Home Orchard spray guide up there. Cornell does that. I know they do.
Yeah, Cornell.
Yeah.
Right.
But down here in the south, we do a dormant spray with oil emulsion plus copper. That's a delayed dormant spray. And then at bud break, we spray with a fungicide Captan. And then at pink, and I'm going to show you what pink looks like. That's pink.
Yeah.
Right there, first pink. That's when it's very important for controlling rust at that stage, and that's the reason I made a big point out of that.
Right.
But you'll want to include Immunox in your spray mix. Captan or Immunox, and it specifies in the notes here, if cedar apple rust has been a problem in the past, use Immunox in this spray mix. So you use Immunox plus malathion or S-fenvalerate for the insects.
Right.
And then you spray, and this is, and you're not going to hurt the pollinating insects then because this is before it's busted open.
Okay, good.
And then go with your cover sprays when all the petals have fallen off. That's when you go back to, again, Immunox plus the malathion or one of the insecticides in your spray mix.
Okay.
This is a protective treatment, and when you apply the cover sprays, That's an Immunox in our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Is what we recommend for rust diseases on apple trees.
Are there rust-resistant varieties or?
There are
There-
varieties
yeah,
that
that's
are not as susceptible to rust as others. Yeah, I know Golden Delicious is very susceptible to rust, but there are varieties that have
there's
some
some out there.
that have some resistance. And I would, if you're starting an apple orchard, make sure that you try to get
a
some
new
varieties.
family member.
Get some varieties that.
Need another tree.
That's right. Get some
Start
that's
to get
resistant
on
to rust.
the way.
Yeah, something that's resistant. I'm sure they again have that information in Cornell Extension. I'm sure.
That's right.
They will
That's
have
right. And
that.
I've got 5 apple trees in my little orchard, and a couple of them are Golden Delicious, and they get covered up with rust every year because I have cedar trees everywhere,
Yeah.
and I don't spray them.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, do as I say, not as I do. When I retire, I'm going to start spraying my apple trees. But I have 2 or 3 varieties that don't have a problem with it.
Right.
So it's very, very important.
Very
and I
important.
planted the Golden Delicious as pollinators without even looking, without even checking, because they're good pollinators for a lot of the other varieties. But there are pollinators out there that have resistance to rust.
I live in North Carolina on the South Carolina border, and I have 2 fruit trees that were planted 2 years ago. They are not in great shape. They are failing. When should I move my fruit trees? In the fall? Thank you. And this is Ron from North Carolina. So,
Wow.
okay. Yeah, so he wants to know, when should I move my fruit trees? Right.
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
Why does he want to move them?
Okay.
I mean, why does he think he needs to move them?
Yeah, because he just tells us they are
I know
failing.
they're failing,
Right.
but how are they failing? Is
Right.
it did he plant them in? It's gotten shady in that area, and there's not enough light for them. Is it in a low area that's staying too wet? But either way,
Either way. Yeah, picture would
whatever
help,
is
but either
wrong.
way, right.
But I think he's correct. Fall
Okay.
would be the best time
Okay.
to move them while they're young.
Have a location,
Yeah.
in sight, of course.
Sunny,
Yeah.
well drained
Right.
would be good.
It'll be good for that. But you can get away with it in the fall.
Sure.
I can hear Mr. D in my head now.
Uh-huh.
He would say winter.
Oh,
He would say
in
winter.
Yeah.
Early spring would be a good time to do that.
True.
As well.
I would wait till the leaves fall off of it.
Right.
Before I would move it.
Right. Which is why Mr. D said winter,
Mm-hmm.
because the tree should be in dormancy, at that
True.
point in time.
Yeah.
Right. Or semi-dormant.
Right.
So yeah, I think you'd be fine, Mr. Ron. But yeah, we need to find out why the
Yeah.
tree is failing in the first place.
And he could call his local extension
Sure.
agent and have him come out and help him assess maybe a better location for it.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I have been fighting birdweed in the yard for 3 years now. Please help. I have used Roundup and had the yard professionally sprayed in the spring 2 years in a row, and still it is taking over. The only thing I haven't done is to use a pre-emerge. I think we might come back to that. What do I need to do to get rid of birdweed in my lawn? Our yard is 4 acres, but the birdweed is only in a portion. I think the lawnmower wheels may be spreading the burrs when they dry out. I need to get control before we start mowing. Our dogs would especially appreciate your expertise. And this is Judy from Ecru, Mississippi.
Yes.
So the dogs would appreciate your
Yes.
expertise.
And any
do I?
child that's barefoot too.
Oh, yeah.
Or any person that's barefoot.
Or any person. Any person.
Yes. Yeah.
Birdweed.
Yes, I have that in my
I
yard.
have it in my yard as
And
well.
it's not, it's recent. It's just in the last year or so that I've had it. So.
I've had it for a couple of years.
And I don't know, it's crazy, but yeah, spot spraying with either a broadleaf herbicide, or even you could just even dab it with a little bit of Roundup to get rid of the individual plants. But there's going to be a seed bank there already, and it's going to keep coming up till all the seeds are exhausted. So best thing would be pre-emergence.
Let's go back to it. So something that
And she hadn't done that
Miss Julie
yet.
hadn't done yet. So I would go with the pre-emerge. I would do a pre-emerge in the fall.
Yes.
Dithiopyr, pentamethylin, prodiamine. I would go with those in the fall. You're going to read and follow the label on that. If you have to use a post-emergent herbicide, I would do that in the winter. I would do it December, January, maybe a little bit of February, right? And you
if
can
it's
do
there.
that with a 3-way
Yes.
herbicide, right?
If you know when it's there. If it's
right.
there.
If it's there. But the pre-emerge, I would do that first. I would definitely
yes.
go with a pre-emerge.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, culturally, make sure we're growing a thick stand of grass.
Yeah.
So do you have the right grass for the area? Right. That's first thing first. I can answer that for my own yard. I do not.
Yeah.
Right. So
I
you have the
don't
thick
either.
stand of grass. It would crowd out the burr weed. Right. But yeah, in the fall, use the pre-emerge. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you wait later than the fall to use pre-emerge, it's already going to start to develop the little burr. And then by that time, you have to use the post-emerge, which is the 3-way.
Yeah.
Especially as you get into, the spring.
Yeah, and you're probably going to have to be on a pre-emergent cycle. I mean,
yeah.
isn't it? It's several times a year.
Right, it's going to be a couple of times a year, depending on which product you
Yeah.
decide to use. Right, just read and follow the label. It will tell you that.
Yeah.
You know how many times you need to put it down and when you would need to put it down as well.
Right.
So Miss Judy,
Sorry.
yeah, but use the pre-emerge. You haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's going to work. It's going to work. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for sending in the questions. To get more information on anything we talked about, go to familyplotgarden.com. We have all these questions listed on the home page. Thanks for watching, and keep sending in the questions. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.